Hello, an agenda of issues for MEPs next week that travels the world and beyond to the very ozone layer itself. What position should the EU take as we approach the crucial UN climate change summit in Paris next year? There's a target-setting meeting with heads of state and government in New York this week, but MEPs on the Development Committee on Tuesday will be focusing on the subsequent conference in Lima, Peru in December. How ambitious should Europe's CO2 reduction targets be, and can they find consensus among the different political groupings? Across the way, Parliament's Agriculture Committee will be considering the future of Europe's forests, all 35% of its landmass. It's important as the way Europe's 1.5 million square kilometres of forest are managed is at stake. The committee meets on Tuesday. They're watching us from across the pond. Okay, we've known for some time about the data trawling practices of the US National Security Agency, but nonetheless it was a wake-up call for people with completely different values on data protection, hence negotiations on the transatlantic exchange of personal data. Members of the Civil Liberties Committee will hear on Wednesday where those talks stand, as well as the legislation that will inevitably follow. Closer to home, Parliament gears up next week for hearings the following week into the appointment of Jean-Claude Juncker's Commission. They'd do well to read the updated Code of Conduct improving efficiency and effectiveness, which will be discussed by the Budgetary Control Committee on Tuesday. Its authors note that the new code fails to address most of Parliament's 28 recommendations for improvement, and they want a review of the Commissioners' ethics system. Hot on the heels of approving the association agreement with Ukraine at the plenary session, MEPs on the Foreign Affairs Committee will next week consider association agreements with other former Soviet hotspots, Georgia and Moldova. In the light of the fighting in Ukraine and Russia's role in it, many MEPs want to press ahead with these agreements. They're not quite there yet, as Monday's meeting is a progress report and debate. Environment Committee members will be grappling with a contentious issue next week: carbon leakage. This is the migration of the operations of high-polluting European companies outside the EU because it costs too much to finance their emissions here. Producers of cement, iron and steel, for example. So to keep them here and Europeans in work, the EU has a list of exemptions, just updated. But the Greens argue too many companies are included. A vote on their objection is due on Wednesday. A complexity of an entirely different order comes to the same committee next week when nominations are made for this year's Sakharov Prize for freedom of thought. It'll be interesting to see which frontrunners emerge after 12 months dominated by stories of global conflict and heroism. Just some of the highlights coming up in the European Parliament in Brussels next week. For more, tune in to EPTV and enjoy the week.